look for Tim.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Planning Board meeting, Tuesday, September 10th, 2019. Looks like we have just one bill tonight for consulting services. Paul, do you want to explain this?
Yeah, this is related to the Cumberland Farms. It's part of the peer review. It was actually the traffic consulting work. It was for services through June, but the invoicing came to us a bit late, and so it wasn't, you all had already paid at least one other invoice. In fact, we have the summary in there, but this is for, again, additional traffic, the traffic review, and then their attendance at a meeting back in June.
All right, so that's going to be passed around for you all to look at. Are there any questions on that? I guess we can actually jump to the minutes while that is being passed around. We have the minutes for August 20th. Do we have any corrections, changes, or?
Yeah, I have a couple. One question I had on West Main Street, you're referencing talking about allowing gas stations in an underground storage tank. I thought what was coming up was we were discussing the total elimination of a Zone 3. That's what I thought the basis of the general conversation was, that they were looking for us to basically, because you gave us this stuff from DEP,
Right.
and they were talking about whether it wasn't required. And I don't know that I didn't think we were talking specifically about the underground storage as opposed to just the elimination of 3, and that's what we talked about.
Well, they talked about that and then I didn't understand it to be the elimination of Zone 3, but a modification to the bylaw language regarding Zone 3 to make an allowance for underground tanks. But I never heard anyone, well, there wasn't anyone here, but we never talked about eliminating Zone 3. I think what we talked about was the state gives the town the ability to regulate Zone 3 however we would like. So we don't have to put regulations in, but we didn't go, I know I didn't go as far as saying eliminate it.
Okay,
So maybe we need to-
My understanding as well.
Yeah.
okay.
Maybe there needs to be reference to Zone 3, maybe in that paragraph then, Paul? Maybe
Okay.
that's kind of what's missing, is not, like, the context of what bylaw we would be changing.
Oh, okay, right within.
You see what I mean?
Storage
Like
tanks
before-
within Zone 3.
Yeah, like, let's add some,
Yeah.
just context to it,
Yeah.
to orient
Yeah.
point, to really say, you know, this was the context in which we were talking
I
about
think we
it.
can just quickly
Yeah.
fix that with, right after, on the second line,
Storage
their
tanks.
underground storage tanks within Zone 3.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
better, yep.
Then on the second page, when we were referencing Amy's comments, I thought she had some initial comments, but then we did reference Section 15.1, which says the purpose includes protecting against adverse impacts to adjoining landowners. And then we also referenced that it did spell, although the list of the objectives seemed to reference landscaping to reduce noise and impact, 15.8A1F said specifically allows for conditions to mitigate adverse impacts on neighbors and abutters caused by noise. So, because the way this was left, it looked like there was no reference to noise and allowing for us to put any conditions on
Okay.
it. But we did specifically reference those two other sections.
Can you give me this reference again?
Sure. One was 15.1 itself, that's the purposes.
Right,
And
okay.
then it said, the last line called for protecting against adverse impacts. And the other section was 15.8A1F. And those were under the decision, and it allows for specific conditions to mitigate adverse impacts on neighbors and abutters
Yeah.
caused by noise.
Okay.
And then,
Chairman, Orin has two really good points, and we're meeting next Tuesday again.
Yes, the
Yes.
17th.
Yes.
I agree also that we need to tie in the discussion of the Zone 3 water runoff in the bylaw, because that was the gist of the discussion. And if you can tie back to the original agenda item, into the notes and tie back Warren's comments, because I think this is misleading based on what the agenda item was and what our discussion was. And if you can do that and redo the minutes, I'd prefer to hold off and to approve these until we have a new hard copy of black and white based on the comments and feedback.
Yeah, there's no rush on my end to push them through.
Okay.
So if Orin, you want to just speak with Paul
Yeah.
this week and get it
Okay.
straightened out, and then we
The other
can,
thing-
Yeah, then the other one would be the line below that, which just has some of my comments on it. I would like to add that I was trying to say, would like a similar project to compare to, especially in regards to noise and EMF. And the other point I made was specifically to having no real relevant examples to look at for property values. That was the other, I think, key point I made that I'd like just to have also written into the meeting minutes
Okay.
as well, please.
You had height and pile driving?
Oh, yeah, also to just in regards to not having the geotech done to know if pile driving was suitable for that area.
Okay.
The helical would be with the preferred.
Right. But even that, they don't know if it'll absolutely work in all locations. But that is the preferred method, Tim's correct there.
Yeah. And then at the end, I believe Amy was going to confirm what plans the Conservation Commission actually reviewed, and then determine whether they were aware of the location of the equipment, which is now and we wanted to confirm whether it is in the floodplain zone, and whether they actually addressed that in their review of it. And she said she was going to confirm
Right.
with Conservation on those two things.
all right, any further changes? So what we'll do is, yeah, Orin, if you don't mind, just get with Paul and, because it is written properly. Then we can go over these again next week. Has everybody had a chance to look at that bill?
Yes.
All right, are there any questions on that?
Nope. No.
Motion to approve?
Second?
Motion, and who was second, who was first?
Scott can do it.
Second.
All right. Motion and a second, any further discussion? All right. Okay, all four?
Aye.
Against? Okay. Sign that in the right place, right?
Okay, thanks.
Okay, we have an A&R for West Main Street. 1 Power Street, it's Roman Catholic Bishop of Fall River. The applicant is Matthew Costa. Do we have Matthew here? You may come forward.
Can you explain what the plan is?
Yes, sir.
Please.
You can come right up to the microphone.
Thanks.
Go see-
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Matthew Costa. I'm an attorney with the law office Gaines Gate, PC in Taunton. We represent the Diocese of Fall River. So this is a plan that shows the division of the existing parcel where the church and parish center is at the corner of West Main Street and Power Street. It's a rather large lot. And so this plan shows 3 lots being created on West Main Street that meet the frontage and zoning requirements of the town zoning bylaws, and there'll be a remaining parcel, 10.94 acres, where the church and parish center are.
And I just started with the practice of getting parcel, this is just the online parcel layer
That's great.
existing, so it just gives you a reference point.
Okay. And the plan looks a little bit different than the assessor's map. But basically, the 3 lots being created are to the left of the parcel 3 on the assessors map, they're to the left of that, on
Yep.
that, so.
The intention is these,
That Russell, Jacqueline Reeves, that's a standing lot right now? The existing lot?
Yeah, that's a separate lot.
the intention is for these to be potentially residential homes.
Yeah, the potential is for residential use, and as shown on the plan, we have the different requirements for either a duplex, a triplex, or a 4-unit building, and the contiguous area of each lot. So Lot 1 has 26,000, over 26,000 square feet of upland, so potentially that could be a duplex. Could be single-family, potentially a duplex. Lots 2 and 3 have a little bit more upland, so potentially a 3-unit. The idea is that this is all owned by the parish, and the sale of these lots would benefit the parish and put it on a strong financial footing. So, to be sold and developed according to what's allowed under the zoning bylaws. They don't know how it would be used, it would be sold to someone else.
Do you have any questions from the board here?
This doesn't necessarily reflect on the merits of the plan, but just, we have a typo on the text on the left side. Continuous is missing a U. Not sure if we just want to edit.
Oh, yeah. It should say contiguous. Oh, no, continuous.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
missing a U. Don't know
Yeah,
if we
right, okay.
Copy edit that on the Mylar. Is that?
Or could we just mark it on the
Yeah.
bylaw?
Yeah, I think we can, right?
We did it
So
for,
the dimensions on Lot 3, the frontage, is that 134? No, just 3420 and 85? 85?
Lot 3?
Lot 3, yeah, you need a 120-foot frontage? Okay.
Yes. 120.05 feet.
32, 120, okay. Oh, the hair.
house is here, house is here, house is here. And across from it.
All right. Any further questions? So we just need to vote to endorse, so I'll take a motion to endorse.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll get you these signed copies tomorrow.
Okay.
I'll keep, there's several other copies, but we'll take the Mylar and
Oh,
then just
okay.
take it down to the...
Yeah, right,
Right up here.
okay.
No, right here.
Yeah, I got it.
I was saying, what's wrong? I had to check it on my phone just to be sure. I said, what'll be it?
Thanks for noticing that.
Yeah.
Very good at that.
Yeah.
You sign each of these?
Yep.
Yeah, we have four,
Right.
we have 4 total, plus the Mylar.
Where was this edit? Oh, there it is, okay.
Yeah. Completed my mission for the day.
All right, thank you. Oh. That'd be an easier way to do this.
I know. We'll figure it
But
out. one of
Probably
these
just
days.
leave them at the front table.
Yeah.
Then we'd forget, and then we'd.
No, just, well, if you usually have a space, so you could just leave all 4, and one of you just goes up and signs it 4 times, and might be a
Yeah.
little more organized.
Yeah. Then we just make sure we don't forget by the end of the meeting.
Are there two?
Because we've done that once. We had to call somebody back in for the parking lot.
Will you keep all the copies tonight?
Frank, and
Yeah, we'll keep them.
we had to go get
Okay.
Frank or something, I think. I forget.
So he gets the Mylar?
If not, he gets the Mylar.
Okay, so if the Mylar's done, I've signed it. Did everybody else sign the Mylar? So he can have the Mylar, and the rest will go to us. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry.
All right, next up, we have special permit 486, 60 West Main Street, Cumberland Farms Incorporated. This is the continuation of the public hearing.
Again,
Nice job.
up, down arrow.
Hopefully I can figure it out.
I think a lawyer can.
You'd be surprised, or maybe not.
That's my agenda.
Hold on, here it is. Is this it? Oh, that's it.
Do you want to pass those up? I don't think I signed it. Whenever you're ready.
All right, great. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. DiGiuseppe. I'm Tom Reedy. I'm an attorney with Bacon Wilson out of Amherst here on behalf of Cumberland Farms in this continued special permit site plan review hearing for the proposed Cumberland Farms site at 60 West Main Street here in Norton. With me this evening, I've got the developer Tracy Roll from TM Crowley, Maureen Schlebeck, traffic engineer with McMahon Associates, John Marchand, civil engineer with Farland Corp., and also Bob Coluccio, who is a professional engineer, and he's here to talk about the pump and tank plans. So maybe a little bit by way of background, we were here June 4th of this year. The Wednesday prior, we received a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals for some signage. And we made a presentation. We heard from the peer reviewers. As you recall, there was a stormwater peer reviewer and also a traffic peer reviewer. And then there was some discussion about the existence of this site in Water Resource Protection District Zone 3. And so at that point, things kind of came to a halt. We did have our professionals, both Maureen and John, meet with the respective peer reviewers to discuss the comments. As you remember, there were several comments from each of the peer reviewers. They had met, they are both prepared to address those comments, but instead of doing that, I think we wanted to give you a bigger overview of some of the site changes that we've made, and then probably talk about the threshold issue, which is the water resource, the existence of this site, and the request for a gasoline station in the Water Resource Protection District, Zone 3. As you may know, there has been a petition for the fall town meeting for a zoning amendment to allow, and so you were talking about your minutes earlier, and you were talking about Zone 3 and whether there was going to just be the elimination of Zone 3, or what actually has been proposed is to allow a use like a gasoline filling station in a Zone 3, which is totally within the discretion and purview of the town, and in fact has happened in other municipalities, with certain conditions and meeting certain standards. And so part of the reason that we've got Bob here tonight is to talk about what those conditions may be and what those standards may be, because he'll talk to you about what these tanks really are, what they're made of, what the piping is made of, and all of the monitoring systems that go into it, to hopefully make you feel comfortable with putting this in a Zone 3. And
Just, Paul, question to you. This has to come up as a zoning bylaw under having a hearing.
Yes.
Does it serve us well to hear information about that zoning amendment now, when it won't it need to come up at the time of there's a hearing on the amendment itself?
So, I mean, that's.
Well, and we're going to, so we intend to be here, and I've heard October 1st is the date, and we intend to give a complete presentation on the Water Resource Protection District, Zone 3, and why we think that the planning board can recommend to town meeting approval of the provisions that we're proposing. We don't have to get into the Water Resource Protection District itself, but maybe we can talk about the pump and tank plans just as part of this special permit application process. It's up to the board. We don't want to be improper by any means. We're just trying to educate a bit, and then understanding that we're going to come back October 1st, or whenever that hearing is, to give a full presentation on the merits of that zoning amendment that has been proposed.
Or are you are you,
Well, I would think, let's just let him get through his presentation, and then if we have questions, we'll,
I'm just concerned about open hearing law. If there's a hearing on that issue, we will have heard information, if it's not the same information, that the public hasn't heard for relative to that amendment. And so that's why, that's why I'm not, I understand he's trying to give us the information, but then again, we're getting information that if it's not the same information, we may be relying on information that wasn't disclosed at the public hearing.
But when that item comes up, I mean, you are responsible then just to react to what is in that, that article. So that's the official, I still hear what you're saying, but yeah.
If I get information now that I'm hearing that's not raised at the same time, I don't want to, I don't know that we can get information on that, what's going to be
Sure.
a public hearing.
And you won't be deliberating on the article tonight.
Right.
That's
So,
certainly-
I mean, there's enough information you can probably update us on, but I'm just
Yeah.
reluctant to
Yeah.
do it.
absolutely, and I guess what I would say is it's no different than learning anything in life, is that once you've got it, and I'm sure that, when you go into these zoning amendment recommendation hearings, you take all of your prior knowledge, wherever it may be from, and that helps inform what your decision is on that evening. And so I would just suggest at that time, if we do a great job tonight, another very good job later on, then I think you're in your right to say we don't recommend it because we haven't heard the things that we needed to hear at that evening. So we'll be careful. We won't, as part of what we have provided to you this evening, maybe which we won't get into, but it will be a submission for the October 1st hearing, is a water supply, water resource protection district overlay map, just so you understand the scope of what it is that you will ultimately be deciding about. And so it's only Zone 3, and it's only those areas which the underlying zoning district allows this use. I just mentioned that once so that you know what's been in the packet, though we don't have to, if you want to go over it, by all means, we can go over it, but I want to respect the members' comment about not getting too far into it. So I think if there's anything that's specific to that zoning piece, it's probably that, so we can certainly stay away from it. I want to respect the boundaries. So then maybe before we get into too much, and so we've got Maureen here to talk about the traffic, if you'd like. Frankly, there hasn't been, she had the meeting, and she's ready to respond, but we haven't formally responded to the peer reviewer because I don't think they've been released yet to actually go that next step. And so maybe one of the outcomes of this evening, because we're not going to close it this evening, it's going to be continued to some date certain, is potentially the board advising either us or Mr. DiGiuseppe to allow that reviewer to continue the review, so that if, in fact, town meeting votes favorably, we're right at the precipice of hopefully getting in front of you in November for a hopeful approval. So that's part of it. And then also the stormwater is about the same way. They met, I think, with Mr. DiGiuseppe, John, and the engineer. They've started to address everything. They haven't addressed everything because there's typically a serve and volley between the peer reviewers and the engineers. So if you'd like either of them to talk specifically to stormwater or traffic, we're happy to do it. We thought it would be more useful to talk somewhat generally about the site and some of our responses to what we heard at the last meeting in June. And I think one of the loudest things that we heard was, make this more pedestrian friendly, make this more walkable. And so what we did is we pulled the building up, and John, I don't know if you want to bring up the previous plan, because I think it's important to see what we had talked about, and then some of the changes that we made in response to what the planning board had discussed, understanding the location of this building in town.
Sorry to interrupt you. Just for clarity, so what's the intent of the scope for tonight's meeting then?
The intent of the scope of tonight's meeting is
Just
to
an update on the site plan?
update on the site plan, and then to talk about the pump and take plans, because we've got Bob here. So the underground storage tank. Because so this is the existing, and we've ended up moving them over, and so just to have that conversation as well. So this is was the previous proposal that you had. You see the building was set back, still 24 parking spaces. You had a 6-foot-high fence that ended here. You had your underground storage tank, 2 20,000-gallon underground storage tanks, tucked back against that back property line, and you had your one access curb cut here, full access curb cut there, the other full access curb cut over here, and it was more geared towards, I think, vehicular traffic than it would be pedestrian traffic. And I think one of the things
that we've done, and maybe, and you can see it in a rendering. I'll show you the old one. You're welcome. And John, where's that, the new one? Is it
It's right on.
right underneath?
Flip it up.
Flip it this way. And so what we've done, and what you'll see up on the screen, is pull the building up towards the street. As you recall, before we had the curb cut here. We've now shifted the curb cut to be across from the senior center, which is one of the comments that we heard, to make vehicular traffic and movements better. We separated the site a little bit, and you can see where the parking is, and I'll flip back so you can see where the parking was and how it was oriented to where it is now, a little bit more perpendicular to the street and parallel with each other. We've got a 7-foot-high fence that extends all the way down. We've moved the underground storage tanks from this property line. We've shifted it over here to this, to underneath the parking area, away from that property line. We've moved the dumpster as well. The dumpster previously was over here on this side of the site. And we moved it over now to this side of the site, and we can deal with reverse gear alarms and timing of the dumpster pickups to make sure that it doesn't impact the abutters. One of the things, so I'll scroll through some of the renderings. This is without the canopy. A canopy will be there, but just to show you what the architecture looks like, the stone veneer. And then, we appreciate that. And then here, this is the elevations. What we've done is we've put, let's see if I can zoom in a little bit here. That's no good. So we've got on the back here, it's a solid panel system, 4 foot high. Before we had slatted panels, but we've got a solid panel system there to direct the sound up, so the rooftop mechanicals are on the back. One of the things that we had talked about was what's the sound going to do with the condensers, et cetera. And so with the solid, it forces the sound up instead of out potentially through those slats. We've also added a bike rack that's right here to try to make it more pedestrian and.
The equipment, is that on the back,
That is on the back, yeah. If I could
Which is the back?
know how to zoom in.
left side is
left side.
Right back here.
Okay.
That's that side. So, yeah, if we look through the, so that's the front, that photo is taken from about over here. There is a canopy, like I said, so that's what it would look like if you were on this side of the site, looking this way. And so the screening of those rooftop mechanicals is on the back. That's about, I mean, John, is there anything else? I think that's about the extent of the site plan modifications at this point. As I said, there's still traffic outstanding, there's still stormwater outstanding, but we think, and we'd love some feedback, we think we're moving in the right direction with
What does the
responding to
elevation
some of
look
the.
like facing the street?
Pardon me?
What does the elevation look like facing the street?
See if I can find that. I'm going the wrong way. It's the first photo that you've got. There it is. That's what we've got, and we're open to feedback.
How many square feet is the retail store? And trying to do the math in my head, how many parking spots would be required by zoning for that?
4,384, so it's the same that it was before, 4,384. The net sales area is 1,944 square feet.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. It looks like a good amount of spots. I'm just thinking that the spots on the right side of the lot probably aren't going to be somebody who's going to be shopping at the store and
Okay.
playing Frogger.
I see what you mean, on the far side here.
Yeah,
Is that where you have the employee spots? Or
Yeah, I think.
possible employees or air pump or
Yeah, that's,
something.
I mean, I think practically, and it really depends on how busy the site gets. I think if people really want to get into the store, they're gonna end up parking here and then walking around the site, and I don't know if we can, I mean, if your concern is routing of pedestrians from the far side of the parking lot to here, we can probably maybe look at ways to keep them safe as they're traveling through the parking lot.
I think my concern would only pop up depending on like how many spots do we need to have?
We need 19 under zoning, we've got 24.
Okay.
And I don't think that counts any of them
Reason
at
for
the,
having excess parking?
pardon me?
Is there a reason you're thinking you need more parking than?
Yeah, I think Cumberland Farms, based on its market experience, would rather have more than less because I think they find that they're typically filled. And, you know,
And when you said you can arrange to have some arrangement for them walking across all the trafficked area, what did you have in mind?
well, I mean, if we've got a sidewalk along the bottom, on the road side, we having a sidewalk down there, John?
Yes, yep, within the right.
Within the right of way, okay, so sidewalk there, and then, and this is where lawyers get in trouble because they speak like they're an engineer, but maybe something along this way to keep it, and I don't know if another sidewalk or something on the other side of the site makes some sense, just for routing of people.
Well,
The fact that you have extra spots makes me a little less nervous about that.
Okay.
Because it's not like
It's gonna be full and people are certainly gonna be walking across.
at all times.
Right.
Kind of in my thought process. It's certainly something that I look at and go, nobody's gonna want to park there. And
People will likely park at the pumps and then walk in, I mean,
Yeah,
we
which-
all, I think, do that
Yeah.
sort of stuff.
yeah, so it's-
right, because, you know, if you put a trail along the back, people are going to usually walk the straightest distance, and I wouldn't see people, based on what
Actually
you
going
were...
there. Okay.
Yeah, we want to be able to build something that people would end up using, so...
Okay.
Well, you can also take out one of the islands, that would help too.
oh yeah, that'd be tough for them.
Yeah, the other thing, I'm assuming you probably have some plans where you could embellish on what the front elevation looks like, as opposed to a flat, white, undescript building that
You
looks
mean-
like an infirmary?
I won't tell anybody you said that. So on this side, do something like we've done, let's say,
Signage.
what you've seen, either sign it or even put like a, and again, lawyer gonna get in trouble, like a gabled end or something like that, where it has a
Just
little
saying,
bit
that's the front of a
differentiation
Very
to
major
it.
street for us, and I'd like to have a presentable front
Okay.
that's facing on Main Street.
Okay.
And what else is on that street side there? You said there's a bike rack. Is there anything else?
Like our close to the, yeah, it's
Looks like there's a stone wall with a...
Yeah, so there is
Cement area?
stone veneer, I think it's about 3 foot high stone veneer that wraps the whole building.
Okay. And there's a patio of some sort there?
That patio, I believe, I think we actually
that
got
a walkway
rid
for
of the
the-
patio. I don't think there is a patio here.
Okay.
Wasn't there,
In the original one, there was one.
There was
Yes.
original, we were
There
asking
was.
for actually some ability to have maybe seats out there,
Yeah.
tables.
In the
Oh, and I think
original one, they had-
somebody had mentioned an entrance on that side too, for the pedestrians. I think we talked about that.
Well,
because we had
Joe
these two.
had, this is, Joe has spoken a lot, and I think they took a lot of his comments
Yeah.
into this design where try
yeah.
to stay within the spirit of the village commercial district and make it more pedestrian friendly. I think he had mentioned that a lot of the customers may be coming from Wheaton College and to cross over the drive and the parking area to get to the store would be awkward and less safe than what they've designed here. So this is definitely an improvement based on
Yeah, moving the entrances over too, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
That got, I mean, as far as my concern with the walking, the pedestrians, moving that helped.
Is there room in the front for tables and chairs for seating? I don't know what the setback is. It's
You mean right in this area
no.
here? There may be.
I'm-
Yes, we can take a look at that.
it appears to pull a lot away from the budding neighbors in the back as well.
Does.
Not only the fuel tanks, but, the dumpsters. And, there's really nothing on that back front, it appears.
Yeah, you see where I mean, where it was,
And the fence going all the way across as well.
and 7 foot high as opposed to 6 foot
But
high.
now you have the tank abutting, is that a retention pond you have there?
It is.
So that's abutting that?
It is. So this next one isn't colorized, it's gonna be the one I flip back to, just for orientation purposes, so they've moved over here, and then that's where that retention pond is.
Has the peer reviewer reviewed this plan with the move? No.
Not yet.
We haven't
Well, what-
received it.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to get them responding and you
Right.
responding to their thing.
Yeah, I mean, we'd be happy to engage in conversations with them, certainly.
Was there talk in terms of traffic of adding a turning lane somewhere on West Main Street?
I'll turn to Maureen I know when I've said enough.
For the record, my name's Maureen Schleback with McMahon Associates. So that was one of the comments from Jeff Dirk on the peer review for the traffic study. And we did prepare a response to all his comments. And when it came to the turn lane, we went through the numbers of the queue analysis at the driveway, and we also did a pretty in-depth study of the queues that result from the schools adjacent. And none of those queues are extending to the Cumberland Farms driveway. And the Cumberland Farms driveway itself has pretty short queues, so a turn lane wasn't warranted for those volumes.
Is that from the original statistics on the queues, or was it, did you do another study?
So our study was based on the size of the building. So even though the site plan has changed, the trip generation has stayed the same because the building size is pretty much the same.
The traffic study,
Yeah,
yeah.
are you we're going to expand the traffic study to do a reanalysis of what happens with the school letting out the hours, expanding the hours?
So we did a comment response letter, and we put all the additional analysis that we did in that comment response letter. There's backup and all that, that went to Jeff, but he has not reviewed it since.
Have we seen that yet?
No, we haven't gotten it back yet, no. No, but I guess the question was there another study done, or you just did a response to it? You didn't do another study yet, is that correct?
So we actually went out in the field and counted, like after Jeff's comments, we went back in the field on a
Okay.
school day, and we actually calculated the queue lengths and did traffic observations and applied all that into our response
Okay.
analysis.
I'll be interested to see that when we get it, because I've been out there personally, and it's gone past there, so.
Mr. Chair, on our June 4th meeting, there was a lot of discussion about the traffic like we're talking about now. And I know we had a letter in our packet from the school superintendent concerned about the traffic, buses letting out, and I know the impact, the domino effect, but the increased impact when you have one school that's delayed and then it moves to the next school in line, and all of the buses serve 4 or 5 schools, so any delay getting out of the high school can impact kids at the last school getting home before dark. So I know that incremental impact it has on the whole bus network. We had asked for the study to be done between peak hours. I think it might have been between 2 and 3. I have to go back to the minutes. Previously, it was done, I think, earlier than that, and they captured all of the peak hours of the school. But also, if the study was done back in June, a big part of the traffic from the high school are students, seniors in particular. And even on June 4th, all of the seniors had already left. They weren't in school any longer on that day. They were out of school the week prior. And then the school system itself ended the Friday after that week of June 4th. So unless they redid a traffic study, I mean, really, anything done back then wasn't capturing the peak period the way we see it today in September. So.
Yeah, for me personally, I think there's going to need some more study on that. I mean, I can just say today at 6 o'clock, I picked up my daughter from behind the Yale, and I came out right to traffic, and that's past your location. So it's definitely going past there at certain points. So I mean, when we get to that, I think that's going to be, I mean, just so you know, that's going to be a major concern for me.
I want to come in roughly 10 after 8, quarter after 8 in the morning. It's, since school has started, it's backed up to the schools.
Yeah, I know we talked about it, and I think I reminded Paul, maybe back in July, when we were talking about extending the public hearing, that, remind them that the traffic study needs to occur during that peak hour, but also when all of the schools are in full session. The middle of June didn't capture that. If they went back even a week later, it would have captured what we're saying September through May.
Yeah.
So that needs to be redone, during, and I think we'll have to go back to the minutes, but I think it was between 2 and 3 perhaps.
We did expand the hours. I think
Yeah.
you're right, Kevin. We did.
Whatever it was previously just missed it. I think we were talking about that, yeah.
Because it was,
1:30 to 2:30 prior.
when the buses were exiting the school in the afternoon, and I think we had talked about between like 2:30 and 3:30, I believe.
Well, the high school gets out a little after 2.
Right.
And
Yeah.
The high school gets out a little after 2:30.
Right,
And I
2:40.
think the previous study was done a little on the front end of that. I think we made
Yeah.
that, like I said, back to the minutes, because it should be in the minutes, but I think we had asked for like 2 to 3 would capture the peak of both schools.
And the morning hours were,
We wanted adjusted too, right?
yeah.
Yeah, I think it went 7 to 8.
So our original traffic study counted from 7 to 9, and we took the highest volume, 1-hour volume in that period. The elementary school starts at 8:25, the high school starts at 7:40. Trying to remember what hour. We had identified 7:30 to 8:30 as the morning peak hour, based on our 2-hour
Yeah.
window of counts.
And
So that included the high school
that's
start.
the one part, I forgot. Now, then, we may have asked to do it between 7 and 8, instead of 7:30 to 8:30.
Yeah, that was the ask in the,
Yeah.
from,
7 to 8?
right.
Okay.
And so we did address that in our responses.
So you did a re-traffic study between?
Yeah, we did a comparison of the volumes of 7 to 8 versus 7:30 to 8:30.
And what date did you do that?
The letter's dated June 13th.
Okay, that's my point. So the morning high school traffic was a fraction of what it normally is at that, on June 13th.
But we had the data from the original study. And those counts were collected, let me just see,
So you had the original data and you just looked at the data set within the time window
right,
and normalized it?
right,
And that was done during the school year,
yes.
when school was in session?
October 25th, 2018. That was a Thursday.
Okay.
So they had the raw
You
data.
actually did the study for more than an hour. You did it,
We collected counts for 2 hours, 7 to 9 a.m.
okay.
And then we looked at, we find the highest hour within that 2-hour period. And when you look at the adjacent street volumes, that was 7:30 to 8:30, based upon that 2-hour count.
And the same with the afternoon?
Yep, so in the afternoon, what we had counted, we had done traffic counts from 2 to 6 p.m., and the highest hour was 5 to 6 p.m.
I think we asked you also to look at the queue from Taunton Street, the intersection of Mansfield and Taunton Street,
Yes,
to look at the queue and provide us with some pictures showing the queue back during those peak
Yep.
hours.
and again, that's in the response back on the peer review comments.
Thank you.
If there aren't any further questions from the board, we can open it up to any owners, any abutters that would like to come up and ask some questions.
Maybe, Mr. Chair, before we do, just to round out, if we've got our professional engineer for the pump and tank plans, and he's just got a couple of things to talk about relative to those, that infrastructure. So maybe, Bob, why don't you come up and, if it's okay, thanks.
I'm really not very comfortable getting into this, because
I don't see a problem with him explaining the tanks. I don't.
But my question about the scope earlier was, we still have 2 conditions that apply that really don't fit with the bylaw now, and we're having a discussion on a site plan that doesn't fit with our bylaw is. So, it's kind of cart before the horse scenario where we should really let the people kind of have that discussion around the bylaw, and then we have a decision on what the site plan is. And I think we're starting to get into details. I feel neither way about their compliance, but I think we're getting into details that kind of drive a convincing pattern to one way or another for what the bylaw should represent. And it shouldn't be taking into consideration the bylaw changing for a specific project. So my opinion is I agree with Orin that we really should kind of pause here and continue these discussions till after the public's kind of expressed their opinion. I appreciate everyone's time for coming, and I understand the equation of, time and cost, but I think we just need to to pause for a minute and make sure we're following the appropriate steps.
No, my only concern with that is it's really not up to us to tell an applicant what they can and cannot come up and present. If they would like to present the information on their tanks, I don't see how we can tell them they can't. And I completely understand your concern, both of you, on this. I mean, do we have any other thoughts on it?
I mean, technically, as the bylaw is written right now, there are no USTs allowed on this site. So,
Yeah,
to Orin and Scott's point, we would be talking about something that right now is not allowed, right? Under our current zoning, this is nothing that we could even take into consideration because it would be a no right out of the gate. So I think that's a valid point, although I do agree that this is going to be a worthwhile discussion to have, especially with the petition, which, you know, obviously we'll review and see in what context the petition is for. Is it for this site only? Is it for all of Zone 3? I mean, that is, to get back to the beginning of the meeting, exactly what the meeting minutes are trying to reflect is our conversation last week when none of you were here about what the original request was. So, just to some extent, what we would discuss from this point forward isn't allowed, right? Am I understanding that correctly?
I'll err on the side of caution and just say we should speak with counsel to make sure that we're allowed to hear. I mean, I don't see a reason for telling an applicant what they can and cannot present. But again, I'll err on the side of caution with this.
Well, they're seeking an amendment, seeking an
No,
extension.
but
They're
no,
seeking- they're seeking
yeah,
an
but that has nothing to do with their application for a site plan. That's completely separate. So we can't tell the applicant what they can and cannot present. We can't do that. But again, like I said, I'll err on the side of caution and say, let's speak with town council just to be sure. I mean, I don't see any reason not to, but I would like it noted that, yeah, I don't think that's something we can do. Kevin, do you have something?
The agenda item for the public hearing has to allow the public time, the ability to come here if they want to hear a discussion about anything. And the agenda item only says application of site plan and special permits for a convenience store and filling station. It doesn't say anything about discussion of the potential article for underground storage tanks. So with that said, there might be people that would be here in attendance and speak on that topic if it was included in the agenda. So I agree with them that we're actually going beyond what the scope of the agenda item is in our.
And I could not have put that item on this agenda. I could not put that item you've just mentioned because that's what you will be hearing. I have to meet, our bylaw requirements for articles for.
Part of my point.
Right.
I'm not saying you should have. You shouldn't have. But I don't think we should be discussing it to their point for that.
Well, the underground tank, I mean, I'm not arguing for or against either way, just to make that clear. The underground tanks were included in the original application, is that correct?
Right, yes.
All right, and that's been viewable by the public?
Right, yes.
Okay. So it's all in the public view, this is a public hearing, I don't see any problem with them continuing on. That being said, I'll err on the side of caution and say let's.
Just, may I add one quick thing, Steve?
Absolutely.
Just for clarity and simplification, I think, and personally, I'd love to get into this, I think.
Well, no, see, this is, again, to be clear, this isn't getting into anything, this is allowing.
just understanding
This is
the
allowing the
design, right?
applicant to explain what they're applying for, and they're going through what their original application was and their updated application. There is nothing that, to my knowledge, that allows us to say, you can't come in here and talk to us about your application.
No, I understand that.
We can't do that. But,
I'd throw the recommendation out there, though, that, like, if there's any context that changes through the public forum, where we then have to revisit this plan, we then have kind of a dual base of design, that now there's the ability to make simple mistakes, where if we just keep it clean and simple, we listen to at one point when we know what's valid and what's not, and we don't have people making decisions where, oh, that was the different design. I think, just for the simplification of it all, and, time conscious, I think.
I think we can ask the applicant, from what they were saying, I don't think they have a problem with really deferring this discussion.
Yeah, I mean, we're happy to do whatever the board's pleasure is. We're not looking to
Yeah, so,
ruffle any feathers or do anything. I mean, we just thought that it would be helpful to talk about our pump and tank plans. If you don't feel comfortable doing it, then we can.
like I said, I'm fine deferring it as long as you're fine deferring it.
Yeah,
So,
we're not gonna.
We'll defer it to the next.
That's
Are you good
fine.
with that, Tim?
I mean, I was gonna say, since I haven't spoken yet, I guess I should. That, I mean, from my view, to Kevin's point, I view gas station requires a tank to put all the gas. So, if I came here, if I wanted to know what was gonna happen with these gas tanks, I would be here. And to me, yes, I understand your kind of point of like understanding, like, oh, that's a different design. What was the design that we talked about? That's actually in front of us, and to a point, I'm not an engineer, so kind of getting to the this is Greek to me kind of level. But I mean, I would have no problem hearing kind of the overview of the tank and the design separate from what it might mean, the tank and the design itself, period. Not touching on
Sure.
how it relates to zoning or anything, just this is how these tanks are really safe. Stop.
The last thing we want is for anybody to be confused, so I completely understand. But the application was submitted months and months ago. It's been open to the public to see, to view, to read through, to write down questions. Some of the abutters might even have questions about it. I mean, do we tell the abutters they can't ask questions about? I mean, this is this line where I think we should have, had town council here to help us with this.
Just go back.
Hold on.
Sorry.
All right. But that being said, I don't want to waste any more time on this, so if you're okay postponing that, that's...
Whatever you'd like.
Is there anything else you'd like to present?
I don't think so. I think we're happy to respond, obviously, if something comes up.
Can I-
With that up,
take one more-
quickly.
The revision of this plan was so obviously expansive, but in the future, any further modifications, we've asked as a board that you call them out,
Absolutely.
okay? Just whether it's a
Absolutely.
separate piece of paper or
Yep.
you circle them.
We will-
This one is so obvious that I understand, but in the future,
We will itemize them, certainly. And then I guess the last thing is, if I don't get another chance to grab the mic, is just to allow us to proceed in that peer review process, because I think you've heard that we've done some work to that end, and I think you're needing to get some of that information back. Maybe a little bit of cart before the horse, sure, but I think in the interest of time.
So how we've done things in the past is any abutters can come up and ask some questions, comments. We'll wait for them to finish, and then we're not going to time anybody tonight. I don't think it's a huge crowd like some previous special permits. So just once they're finished, you guys can come up and respond.
Perfect. Thanks.
And
Yeah,
Go ahead,
You
Kevin.
may want to explain that we're not taking a vote tonight and all that, so the abutters understand, that
yeah, I think that's a given with us pushing the explanation of the tank. So, but yeah, we're not going to be voting tonight on this.
Yeah, of course.
Just make sure you state your name and your address, please.
Sue Lieber, 16 Seminary Way. I am the major abutter to the project. Looked at the new plans. I know that the abutters met with one of the contractors. Was it the construction? The engineer, sorry. One of the things, they did raise the fence to 7 feet. They did discuss adding the 6-foot cypress trees on the inside of the fence for them that I don't see in the plan. I do see that it's listed as landscaping. I just did want it on the record. These trees grow 6 feet a year, I think. And so that would help with the noise on that side, and it was going to go on the inside of the Cumberland Farms. So I just did want that on the record.
Excellent.
I do have a question about this Zone 3, because the last time we were here, they talked about not even trying to get it on an October meeting, and this is the first I'm hearing that it is. Is that correct? I don't know if you guys know. I just am so unsure.
The property owner submitted an amendment to the Zone 3.
Okay.
This board will have to hear it before it goes to the October 21st.
Okay, because I thought there was a 6-day period, so that's where I'm just trying to understand, to make sure I'm available to go in here. That's why I'm just asking the
That has
questions.
to do,
'cause-
the 6-day has to do with the noticing of the articles for the town meeting. But by state law and by our town ordinance, any zoning bylaw change or any rezonings has to go to this board before it, so that they can make a recommendation that goes to the Board of Selectmen and then
Okay.
and it
Okay,
gets
so
read out.
something will
We
be...
haven't heard it yet.
Okay.
Yeah, well,
At the bottom
they
line.
haven't heard it yet.
Okay, and this is
Notices
supposed to-
are going out
And this will take place up for an October 1st town meeting, is that accurate?
October 21st. town
21st,
meeting. And
okay.
we have to, the board needs to decide the October dates.
Okay,
They haven't finalized those yet, but we need to
okay.
get
No,
those.
that's perfect, I was very
Yeah, it'll
confused.
Get heard here.
Okay.
And we will either recommend or not recommend it for
To-
town meeting. Then it will
Okay.
be at town meeting as well.
Well, that goes to
And-
selectmen, I believe.
Do we have-
Yeah,
will they
then
be
to
get-
selectmen, then to town
Will they
meeting.
be
I guess
getting notice
technically,
of our hearing on the bylaw amendment because she's a butter at this
No.
point?
I
It's
guess
not a
that-
rezoning, so no, it would just be newspaper.
On the time, will the agenda be posted for when the meeting?
Yes, the agenda will be posted, we'll put it on social media, but again, because it's not a rezoning case, we don't send it out to abutters. There aren't any abutters
Because
to
it's not
send it out
specific
to.
for that one property.
Because it would be an overall rezoning of all the zones?
Yeah.
Is that how this is looking to be done? They're not looking just to rezone this property, they're looking to rezone all Zone 3s?
It's my understanding that that's what the intention is. It's
Okay.
not-
So they're not
Yeah, it's-
rezoning,
That's
they're
what
not
I was
rezoning
wondering,
it.
that's what I
Permitted
was
use
trying to
in that
understand.
zone. right?
Yeah, they're, right, they're not
theory, it was-
rezoning it, but.
Be
yeah.
able to do something like this in Zone
Right,
3?
Yes.
right.
Yes.
It's currently prohibited, and
Okay.
the proposal is to make exceptions to allow it.
Okay, thank you
So
very
to
much.
Steve's point, it will be heard, I guess technically 3 times here, the Board of Selectmen then approve what's
Yeah.
at fall town meeting, and then at fall
Fall
town
town
meeting.
meeting.
So it's quite a little bit of a process, but it'll get heard in
It-
multiple
Yeah.
venues before town meeting.
And all of those are open to the public?
All of them,
Okay.
absolutely.
I'm hoping
And noticed.
tomorrow to post all of the articles on the planning board's website.
Yep.
So,
Okay,
if you go there tomorrow or by Thursday, you'll see the exact language, because you'll actually see the petition that the applicant submitted, that the petitioner submitted in
Okay.
their own writing.
and that's just under planning board on town meeting, because I usually go to the calendar to find the agenda.
Yeah, just
so-
go to the planning board
Okay.
website, and I'll figure out a way to put it, so hopefully
Perfect.
it's
Right
obvious.
there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, come on up. Oh, actually, did the folks from Cumberland Farms want to address that tree issue, the cypress trees? Oh, you were going to answer?
I was going to add to it.
Oh, okay.
Just one.
Oh, do you
want me to add to it?
We were going to provide the trees, so.
Yes. Sharon Matthews, 14 Seminary Way. Just to add one little thing to Sue's comment about the trees, when we met with the engineer, the reason why it was discussed to put the trees on the Cumberland Farm side of the fence was because they would have to tear down all the trees on our side of the fence to plant these trees. So we didn't want trees being torn down to plant extra trees. So that's why they had said the trees would go on the inside. We'll still see the white fence, but everyone's okay with the fence.
Is there any vegetation there now?
Oh, it's all wooded.
Trees.
Very tall trees. Yeah, so we don't want them coming in with the
On
bulldozer.
their side of
to-
what the fence would be, and that,
Not really. It's all.
It's overgrown, but it's
a
not,
mess,
Overgrown mess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
well, a long time ago, yeah.
okay.
And then I just have one real quick question about if this all moves forward to town meeting, will the Cumberland Farms people be there to speak about what we didn't speak about today, as far as the tanks and all of that, or is they're there to speak as well?
Yeah, see, this is the type of confusion I wanted to avoid.
Sorry.
Yeah, I would assume so.
Okay.
Yeah, and I guess maybe just quickly, and we can help notify the abutters, we'll get their contact. We're not trying to hide anything. I mean, I think that's why we're here in this open session talking about it. And yes, we'll certainly be there October 1st and any other subsequent meetings that this item comes up.
Thank you. Anyone else? Oh, Peter.
Yes,
You can come up to the microphone, Peter. Come on up.
Okay, here you go. All right. Peter Wiggins, I'm in there, 157 Mansfield Ave, Trail 43, and I walk by this road lots and lots of times, and I witness that cars go by every day, and the busiest time of the day is 2 to 3 p.m. and if this is, traffic is gonna be busy when the Cumberland Farms gets put in. Plus, there used to be a Cumberland Farms next door to the bank, the former bank site back in the 70s, along with Dip and Sip Donuts. So, this concern is the traffic going out about every day near the schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Take a video, put it on the Peter channel.
Yes.
I'm serious. I'll be out there from 2 to 3 taking a video and putting it on the Peter channel.
All right, do we have any further questions from anyone in the audience?
That's right. Good idea, Kev.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, we also just remind the applicant, we do have a policy, they should be getting materials in a week before. This being delivered to us today is something that really was, we admonished residents for doing that and accepting it. I don't know why I just noticed it, and we didn't get it. And we've got, if we're going to
That was-
apply a
that was
policy, we've
just
got
the
to apply it to-
presentation.
If we got to apply a policy, we've got to apply it to everybody.
Right,
Both the
that was
applicants-
just strictly the presentation, so I just wanted you all to have,
Well, it's a plan. I mean,
Yeah.
this is a different plan. Not
I mean,
just-
so we haven't formally submitted anything. I think, to your point, Mr. DiGiuseppe made us aware of that policy, and we'll make sure to honor it. We don't mean any offense by having submitted what we submitted today.
No offense to you. I mean, we just have been inconsistent in some of that application, I think, with residents, and in fairness to them, in fairness to everybody, we ought to be consistent in how we're applying.
Without a doubt.
Mr. Chair?
Sure.
I just wanted to compliment you. It looks like you took all of the feedback and incorporated into the design changes. I really like the new design. It sounds like the abutters are satisfied with the changes that you made as well. So, as far as the site plan, I'm completely fine with it personally. I'm just a little bit hesitant of the traffic study. Maybe we can see a copy of that so we can, know that it's not going to be an impact.
Sure, and I think what we'll do, so you've got obviously the original traffic study, but we'll make sure that this, all the comments that you made, or that you had, and that Maureen worked on with the peer reviewer, get to you so you can see what work has been done to hopefully allay any of the concerns you have.
Okay, and I fully agree with Orin on that. I think if it's not received 7 days before, and this isn't, this is to any applicant, if it's not received 7 days before the meeting, we'll open the hearing and then postpone it, or continue it.
Sure.
I think it's, we did put that rule in there for a reason, so. And I'm assuming all that, the traffic study and all that will come with the peer review response, is what you said before, right? So,
Correct.
okay. Any further questions from the board here? Okay, we don't have a date to continue this yet because we need to discuss October dates and confirm them. So if, are you looking to continue the next available meeting, or do you want to?
So I guess it's a great question, right? Because,
Wait till after fall town meeting, or, what's,
We can put it on the back burner until after fall town meeting,
it,
if that's preferable.
okay.
say your
I mean, it probably makes the most sense to do that, because I think one of the material pieces that we're going to have to talk about are those tanks and the lines to them and the pumps and everything else, and we just want to respect the process. So, if you want to kick this over until November, hopefully we'll be back here to talk about the gas station.
All right, so we'll continue this to be determined date in November.
I guess my only suggestion would be when you continue something, it's got to be continued to a time and date certain.
Shall we continue it to the
You could always-
October 1st?
you could always
And
do
then continue from there, just so that,
We haven't confirmed the October 1st. We've confirmed tomorrow, no, because then it'll have to be on the agenda.
can we say the first meeting in November? First meeting of the planning board in November?
It's not definite.
No.
I mean, even if you continue it to next week, understanding that there's not going to be a presentation, only to continue it again, so the abutters here, we're not coming, they don't have to come, and then at least next week you've got your schedule for October and hopefully November by that
How's
point.
everybody on November 5th?
Or we could do it
That's
this way.
election day.
That's election day. How's everybody on November 12th?
be here.
Tell me good things.
How does that work for your timeline?
We'll make it work.
Let's not worry about him, let's worry about us.
When is the meeting in October?
21st.
12 works for me.
October 21st.
yeah, we can't do the 5th, so we're going to have to do the 12th. We'll do the other meetings after we continue this, but the 12th, is that good for everybody?
That's fine.
12th is fine for me.
Okay, so
7:15.
now, yeah, I will hear a motion to continue this to November 12th.
So moved.
Who ma-
Orin.
Moved, second.
Orin, and then Kevin.
Warren and then Kevin, yep.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Vote on that?
You gonna vote?
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh,
Do we
yeah,
have to
sorry.
vote on? Yeah, that we do. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you.
Got a vice chair. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. Good job. Caught a typo. Vote. Okay.
All right. So we have Jennifer Carlino here to discuss potential changes to the stormwater management law, bylaw. Good evening.
Do you want that projected? Do you want the text, or they have, you all have copies of it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, we can just go over some key points, and then if you have questions after that or want to go through it with each one, that would work. If that's all right with you? Okay. The main items that are the purpose of the bylaw revision are to clarify some of the terms. It's a little confusing for people to know if it's the owner, the applicant, the contractor, the operator. So we did some clarification on the definitions. We never actually defined what a pollutant was, so we thought we probably need to put that in there. We added something about using the most recent rainfall data. DEP and Stormwater Management Handbook uses data from the 1960s, and DEP and EPA are trying to work on they have a committee to come up with which data they're going to use. Are they going to use Cornell data? Are they going to use NOAA 14? There's much more recent rainfall data that we should be using. It's more accurate. It does tell you the specific amount of rain falling within a 24-hour period in our area. And so that would be the rainfall data that we would propose to use. We didn't have anything in there about anyone from the town witnessing the soil testing, and so we added that. We took the application procedures. It was very detailed on what people needed to submit, and we thought it's more appropriate to put that in the rules and regulations so we can remove a little bit of that out of the bylaw itself. It makes it a little more flexible for the smaller projects who may not need to have as detailed drainage data, but the way the bylaw is written, everybody has to have that same thing. So to reduce a little bit of the cost and help out some of the smaller projects, they would still have their stormwater reviewed, but it wouldn't require quite as much documentation on their end. And the main thing is to modify the actual procedure of who administers the bylaw. Right now, residents, engineers, contractors, everyone is pretty confused about who actually is administering this bylaw. Right now, it's conservation, planning board, zoning board. It's not really done very consistently. Sometimes some projects are going without having any review at all, and then the different boards look at stormwater differently. So we thought it would really make a lot of sense to just put that under one board. It would also reduce some of the duplication of our efforts in reviewing stormwater under the bylaw and reduce some of the cost for applicants. It does not change anything that you're reviewing under your site plan review or special permit. You're still reviewing the information that's required under your regulations. This is only under the bylaw.
Okay, we have bylaws that ask us to look at stormwater management programs or approve them. You're doing the same thing under this. I mean, how do they come together? What are we supposed to be reviewing? I'd much rather have one agency dealing with it.
Yep.
It seems silly for us to have a peer review of the same thing you're peer reviewing and not being able to rely on what you determine. And that's scratching my head over for a
Yeah,
couple
I
of
would
times.
totally agree. We've had this conversation that like Jen pointed out, there are all these different circumstances where different departments or boards would be looking at it, and what she's doing is streamlining it
But I
for
don't,
consistency and.
but the problem you're running into now is it exists under our bylaws. I mean, we need to change it as well. I don't know that changing it here, it takes away from, it almost makes it more confusing because it still exists under ours. So you stating it here, just saying under Chapter 133, they go to you and not to us. But it doesn't reflect the fact that under our bylaw, they still have to go to us with a peer review and stormwater management issues. I think there's also an earth movement bylaw
Earth removal bylaw.
that goes to us as well for special permit. And I'm just not sure how that should, what's the best way for it to work with conservation? It's stuff we're listening to that, from my perspective, we don't have a clue about.
Yep.
We're relying on peer reviewing, that you're peer reviewing at the same time. So, and my only concern is making a change here that's inconsistent with what we have now. And I'm happy to change it, but I just want to change it so it works.
So the stormwater bylaw that we have was required by the EPA. So the town, EPA has requirements for MS4s, the municipal storm sewer systems. Norton is one of those, so it has to have its own NIPDES permit, National Pollution Elimination Discharge permit. Each town that falls under that program is required to have their own stormwater bylaw. So the stormwater bylaw is more stringent than the DEP stormwater requirements. And so we're still only talking about the additional requirements under this bylaw. I understand what you're saying. If you want to certainly look at the requirements under the special permit and site plan review for stormwater, we can definitely do that. But I wouldn't hold this portion of it up because we're required to do it within the first permit year. And so the stormwater bylaw has to be revised before spring next year. Yeah.
And then if it passes, we would revise ours? I mean, that would be the ideal way to go.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it makes no sense at all that and then that's one of the concerns I kept on raising. I want to defer to conservation, let them answer that, and we're forced to make a decision on stuff. In one case, we didn't even have a peer review on it. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
The other question is, so we get something in our bylaw, it says, we've got to give it to you and you have to respond in 14 days, and that's the initial thing we get. So we get something and let's say there's a stormwater issue. We don't know what that issue is, and you won't know that the issue is until maybe several months into the process.
Right, if applicants aren't filing their permits with conservation and planning at the same time, the only letter I can send you is, hey, it's subject to Wetland Protection Act and stormwater review, yeah.
But that doesn't get updated. I don't know that we can even update it, because it says you have to respond within 14 days, and after response, you can't respond, or, there's a couple of things, that they can't respond after, and it doesn't make any sense, because you couldn't have made any determinations, A or B, the project can change considerably from what's initially submitted to the end. And so I don't know whether that's governed by something else other than our own bylaws, but it didn't seem to make much sense. And it didn't seem to give the conservation or any, the fire department. I mean, in the last project we had, it was the last hearing, they came in and talked about it. And that, because we finally got a sense of what we were doing. And I think the same is true with conservation. I'd be welcome their input into some of these things, because it does, we don't have, from what I understand, a conservation bylaw that gives you jurisdiction. You always say your jurisdiction is limited to X and limited to Y.
Correct, we don't have a wetland bylaw.
And
We're state law.
There's something that we can provide you with that gives you that it seemed like a lot of the things we have to look at says we have to look at environment, which is a lot broader than your limitations. And I'm happy to get the Conservation Commission involved in getting that input. I'm trying to find the most effective way to do that. Because
It seems like that might be something that comes in under the master plan process. Might be one of the goals that come out of that master plan is to take a look at reviewing all the zoning bylaws and seeing how to incorporate like green infrastructure and municipal vulnerability preparedness, the flooding issues wetland issues as well.
Yeah.
It sounds like it would come out of that, and then that, the master plan would allow you to get grants, and then you could have people like Serpide assist in taking a look at all the bylaws and trying to coordinate them all together.
Right. And that's one of the benefits of updating the master plan is you would then, when you want to make the more significant changes to the bylaw, it's a great opportunity to do it at once. You know, the challenge that we have and many towns have is they'll do one major issue, put it in as a bylaw change, and all of a sudden you might have a conflict somewhere.
There's a lot of redundancies.
There's a lot,
Yeah.
there's redundancies, there's conflicts. So that's one of the major outcomes is revising the bylaw, but you want to make sure the public weighs in on it and agrees that these are things that should be achievable, because, you know, as we look through it, I'm going, oh, that should be fixed, but no, I'm not making that suggestion because that's a substantive change, and we want to make sure that the public agrees with it.
Well, one of the things that town council keeps raising is that we can't seem to, right now, we can't seem to rely on conservation because they have a separate jurisdiction. And that's what I'm concerned about. This is establishing them as a total, you know, having that exclusive jurisdiction. We're coming in, we have to, well, maybe we have to do it that way first. Because this would basically say, if it's stormwater, they're controlling this under the chapter 33, but then we still have it under ours that I guess the special permit granting authority has some legislative requirements. So if something comes up where it's either the ZBA or the planning board has the legislative approval process. So I don't know what we can give up and defer to conservation as part of that process, and maybe have to talk with town council to
But I mean,
find out what can apply to what.
My understanding is that this is the first step, and I'm sure a number of steps that would include changing our bylaws to reflect that.
And I guess.
And I think, yeah, I'm sorry, Tim, I think when we do come up with a conflict like that, and that's, again, I'm not an attorney, so I would defer to council when that happens, and it will. I'm sure it will, if this goes through, which, sorry. go ahead.
Yeah, I think to your point, if we're responsible for saying that something meets stormwater guidelines, but we're not reviewing it at all, that's kind of puts us in an odd position. And I think to your point, something about how peer review information is shared or disseminated feels like it should be improved in some way. So if we're doing peer review on a project as a town, I would like to be able to look at it even if it was commissioned by us. I don't know how feasible that is, or whether that is whether like something that's presented at one open meeting can be brought up in another related town meeting, or like
Yeah, that's
how
the
that-
problem. If they have a peer review in front of them, it's not at our open meeting.
right.
And then.
If there
the
was a
applicant
way
doesn't-
to like
Yeah.
do that.
Include that as part of the, yeah.
Well, you could always get a copy of whatever peer review and submit it for the record.
Yeah, and that would be something that I think would be helpful in a lot of situations, because
Yeah,
it's like,
Or we could have, I mean, that would be through you, Paul.
Right.
Yeah.
So we would have,
Was it on Blue Star that we worked to make sure we had the same reviewer on some topics? We did.
They
do it
did.
on
Horsley
one,
was
right?
working
Yeah.
for
We did.
both.
Where you
Concom,
both coordinated so that
Yeah.
there was a concerted, I think at that point, try to make sure that we were all kind of seeing the same information.
on the same page.
Yeah, so I think to Oren's point, a lot of times we're looking kind of in two different directions, so to try and find a way where we're looking at the same information.
Then
and-
it gets into timing.
Yeah,
I mean, They look
agreed.
at one plan, we're looking at
Agreed.
another
Yeah.
plan, and
and what
And either we're
changes
holding them
based
up or
on-
they're holding us,
Right.
yeah. yeah.
What
Right.
changes on or based on our comments or the commission's comments, and they might not be the same comments, and
Right.
so that.
And we meet twice a
good
month,
point.
and we might get information a little
Yeah.
faster or
That's a really
slower, depending on your schedule
We meet
as
twice a
well.
week or something lately.
Oh, twice a
so
week.
Feels-
vote to remove the chair.
I mean, I do think this is obviously a good first step in cleaning it up.
Yeah.
I think you did a great job, Jen, in that. It looks, I think it reads better, it looks better. Like, so I think you're headed in the right direction, and I think I would have to say in the last few meetings especially, we have, I think, touched on our bylaws and, you know, misdirection and reference numbers and little changes over time that haven't gotten carried throughout. And to Oren's point, there are some other substantive revisions that most likely need to take place, and Paul has scrubbed it as well and has a lot of thoughts on that as well. So, personally, I would hate to hold you up based on us, because I do think you put a lot of good work into this, and you do have a requirement timing-wise as well. And I think this is just even more motivation for us to start to really get a handle on our bylaws as well. So.
Thank you.
We don't need to take any action on this,
No.
right? This
You
is-
don't, it's not a
It's just
zoning
discussion
bylaw.
item.
It's a general bylaw.
This is a stormwater permit, which is a little bit different than what we're reviewing. There's a specific stormwater permit. Is that a state permit?
Where are you?
It's a town permit,
It's a town permit?
Correct.
But state mandated?
town
or state-
stormwater permit if it's more than, we tried to make it as easy as possible, right? Most, EPA started with, most towns should come up with a separate stormwater committee. You have separate applications, you have separate public hearings. When the stormwater committee met, we said, oh my God, we do not want another committee, and we don't want to be here another night. I'm already here 2 nights a week. And so we did certain things that would be exempt. We listed certain things that could be administratively approved, the way we currently, the way I currently look at building permits and septic plans. So basically, if they have some sort of perimeter control, they have the catch basins protected, they're sweeping the streets at the end of each day, certain guidelines that people are meeting, then we can sign off on those, so administrative approval. If it has a wetland permit, it already is covered under this stormwater permit, so there's not an additional committee. So we've only had one project in the 2 years that we've had this who didn't actually already need a wetland permit anyway, and that was Wheaton College, and they came for a separate stormwater permit.
There's reference in the bylaws to stormwater management plans.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is that part of this permitting process, or is that something separate?
Yep, part of this process.
So at some point, we can say, we can adapt, well, I'd like to be able to adapt the stormwater management approved by, maybe we can do it that way in some fashion, because there's a permit that's being issued. We don't issue a permit. We don't issue a stormwater permit. We're just endorsing a stormwater management plan. So maybe if that's rolled in as part of that permit, maybe it's just a condition to have a permit or something like, maybe we can do something as simple as that to extricate ourselves from that permitting process. But you can see. I just had a couple of specific questions.
Sure.
Maybe I could just,
Yep, just let me know what
go.
page where you are.
on page 2, you have a, refers to the Department of Protection, integrated list of waters. Is that just something, there's no, is that people are left to their own devices to find what that would be? Or
Yeah, every 2 years, there's a new list from Massachusetts. From DEP creates the new list. It's usually 2 years behind for some reason. And there is a DEP website. We talked about putting the website in the bylaw, but changes in URLs, we didn't want to do that. We'll put that in the rules and regulations, so people can find it.
This is not a process that an individual resident can really follow up. They're going to, anybody doing this will need an engineer.
Anybody with a big enough project is going to have that engineer anyway, who already basically knows what all of this is.
I have a house and I'm building something, an extension. There's
Yeah, they
nothing-
do something minor, even with wetland protection right now. If someone puts in a new driveway, we usually have them do just a stone line trench right next to it, just so it captures that stormwater.
Yeah, but
People are already doing
In terms of
most of
applying for
this
this
stuff anyway.
permit, is that something that your office helps them with
Oh, yeah.
if they don't need, if it's this minor thing?
And it doesn't apply if there's only a clearing of a certain amount of area, correct?
I think he's talking about.
Or-
No, it applies
Disturbance of a
to,
certain amount of area?
it applies to everybody. So if if it's small enough that it's a administrative approval and it just needs some minor things, then it's just administratively approved through the building permit process.
What am I thinking of?
Okay.
It's referring to the
The definition for feasible, that, sorry.
There's a size in the exemption section
Yeah.
for driveways.
500 feet.
Yeah,
Yeah. Page.
just the driveways. But everybody needs to control their stormwater. If it's a small project, it's a small control. If it's a big project, it needs a big control. The wetlands and the stream don't know if the sediment is coming from a small project or a big project or a homeowner or a construction site or,
Yeah,
so
but-
everybody is going to start to learn how to keep control of their stormwater. But most people are doing it now. It's required in all towns anyway.
I appreciate the definition of operator, but you have all operators must obtain permit coverage. What does that mean?
So this definition was taken right out of the construction general permit. And so anybody who does a stormwater permit now is familiar with that construction general permit. And so this is just to make sure that people understand who is actually getting the permit. So an operator right now is the property owner who actually owns the plans for the project and the contractor, so it's both. So
you're ensuring that that contractor has the permit, not that a subcontractor is trying to get the permit on the project's behalf. You're expecting the permit to come from the operator or prime, so to speak.
Correct.
Is that?
Yep, that's what's required now, so we thought, well, let's just put that definition in here so people know it's the same thing.
So, but they both have to apply? Both-
It's one application.
It says all operators
Yeah.
must obtain permit
Yep,
coverage.
yep, they're listed together on that
Okay.
permit to EPA.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then you added the concept of redevelopment applies to the whole lot, not just the degraded areas.
Correct.
Is that
That's
something new?
one of the things I heard in the many discussions with DEP and their presentation and the MS4 requirements. But I do have a note there that this is a question for DEP. I was not able to find that wording in the MS4 requirements. And so there's a note there, we just have to confirm that that's really what it says. Otherwise, we would remove that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was not changed. That's not really maintenance, let's see, okay, the procedures, oh yeah, on page 7 is one of the things, I guess you get that and you submit that to us, and we have to respond, this is small I, we have to respond in 14 days? I mean, is that something that's mandated, or is that something that we can work with? 'Cause-
14 days?
Well, you see, well, yeah, I'm not
Oh, at
sure.
the
yeah.
end of it, Orin, you're saying?
Yeah, it says the conservation Act shall not issue it until reports have been received from departments or until 14 days have elapsed without submissions.
Right, it's just trying to give all departments at least 2 weeks to,
What would you expect from us at that point? You're going to give us this
You could-
application. What
you'd
kind
get it, yeah, you could get the application, you could say, hey, they're before us for a site plan review and where we need to look at our stormwater portion of that, and we will get comments back to you. It's just some kind of acknowledgement that, yep, we're going to look at it, or no, we have no issues with it.
Okay. How do,
If it was something simple, we'd want to be able to get that permit back out to the applicant as soon as possible, but if you think 14 days is too short, then we can change the time.
I mean, I'm not sure what we'd even have. If sitting on a site plan review or something else like that, but if something just came in absence of that, I'm not sure what the scope of our review would be.
You might not, you would just send me a note that, or an email that says,
We have
hey, we
nothing
have no
before us."
comments on this. Great, I heard from you, I can check you off the list.
Okay. And then I guess in 16 on page 6, you've eliminated any caps, is
I'm sorry, say it one more time?
On page, it's page 8, right?
8, yeah, number 16, you just eliminated any caps on that. Well, that works for everybody, but, I mean, is that something.
Eliminated the,
Caps, the limitation.
oh, the pricing.
Yeah.
We figured that should really be in the rules and regulations. And someone mentioned, isn't there a gender-neutral term for manhole now? And I don't know that answer. I don't know the name, I will ask.
San Francisco has now come up with it.
Yeah, this isn't San Francisco.
Did it really?
I think it was the West Coast.
Yeah.
We're on the East Coast.
Funny article in Planet Citizen about it.
All right, there's a note. We'll look it up if
All
it's
right.
appropriate.
was the
There you go,
thing.
Jen, now you know where to look.
Are there any other questions we have for Jen?
Thank you, Jen.
Just one question, the pure demolition projects that don't involve any construction, is that covered in here as well? Like if somebody just wants to raise a building?
If they raise a building, they do need to stabilize the site. So it would apply to them, but that sounds like an administrative approval. So if they have a demo permit and on their plan, they say the final treatment is loam and seed the area, that we just sign off on.
Somebody wanting to do that, I mean, myself, I would say I've got to go get a permit. I got to get a permit to build an extension to my garage. I don't know, I would necessarily know about Chapter 133 and what I have to do.
Right,
At what
but you
point-
need an engineered plan and your engineer has.
Well, at what point, if I apply for a permit, I applied online, at what point am I introduced to this exercise?
If your engineer or the person who drew the plan for you hasn't told you about that, when you apply for that permit, it goes to the departments on the online email, on the online permit system, and then there's a little chat box, and so I usually pipe in now that says, hey, applicant or engineer, your permit is subject to the stormwater bylaw, you need to come and see me.
So it's flagged, so.
Is there like a checklist of help people to walk through this maze of issues, what they have to do, or when they come in for a permit? I don't know if they come into you, Paul, or they go to the building inspector, and they say, these are the things you're gonna need, and how you have.
I think I broke it.
Yeah, or typically, right,
I'm only
usually
making
their
it
first
worse.
step is to either go to Jen or to Chris at Building Commission, and then they go through the steps and determine stormwater, wetlands, whether they need a site plan, a special permit.
I do have a chart right now that it's all over, thank you. It's all over the place to show, ooh, if it's not them, then it goes here, and then it goes here, and then it's a little confusing. So that we do have educational
There's so many
materials
different
on the
scenarios.
website.
I'm just thinking, maybe we do this as part of a master plan, of some way of simplifying this process. I mean, for our sake, for everybody's sake, because it's like going through a maze.
Even a simplification would be.
Right.
I like that that when it's submitted online, that you would all see it and kind of chime in.
And I like the
I mean, that's-
administrative approval, so it probably can help a lot.
Yeah.
That's exactly why we did it.
It's like, okay.
Yeah.
But, yeah, okay, thank you.
We're gonna have to leave a seat for you. You're at every meeting lately. Any more questions for Jen, guys?
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
Okay,
very much.
thank you.
All right, couple things, we need to update our schedule, confirm October. So there was some back and forth, and we never confirmed October 2nd, because I know, Orin, you had, it was a holiday.
Yeah.
But you said you can do the
I
1st?
can do the first.
Okay.
Yeah, the holiday ends by sundown on the 1st, so that's fine.
Okay, so that was the one we were gonna try to do Wednesday, but if we can do Tuesday the 1st, that's better.
Okay.
So we'll change that to the 1st.
Doesn't matter to me either way.
Again, because of will be your first meeting for the town meeting warrants.
The articles.
Because, right, the articles. We do have one rezoning application, so I was working with Henry Souza, who presented a couple weeks ago. He had to get the signs in the ground today in order to, because of our bylaw, which another change that needs to happen, but it was required that the signs go in the ground 3 weeks before the public hearing. So he and I went back and forth, and I said, just let's go with, after Orin had said October 1st was okay, I just told them, let's go ahead with October 1st. One of the reasons, too, I'm flying out of town October 2nd, and I'd really like to be here to present our stuff and, of course, all the others. I do have the library reserved October 1st, so
Okay.
in anticipation of a pretty good crowd that this room cannot accommodate, I would assume.
And with everything going on, I think it's probably best to have Paul here, too.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, the second was,
That works well.
yeah,
Fine.
if we couldn't make the first work, I was gonna change that to a different date anyway, so.
No, but some of these are rezoning. Do they have to be notified, the tenants, the butters have to be notified?
Yes. And we will be getting the notice out. I have to get the notice to the paper tomorrow to make sure it gets into Tuesday, so we'll get the abutters notice out either the end of this week or early next week.
Are we required to have one hearing, or is it 2 meetings?
There's no requirement, but I would suggest you have 2 meetings before October 21st, so there's a Tuesday, October 15th.
Which,
Yeah, somebody,
If you
I
feel like-
remember, we couldn't do that. Was it Joe, or was it?
Yeah, because we made it the 2nd and the 22nd, right? So now we'll make it the 1st, and the question is, can we move it to the 15th instead of doing the 22nd, the day after town meeting?
Right, it just gives you a little.
was
You're
it,
you're back way before.
We're
that.
here next Tuesday.
Yeah,
We can
yeah.
decide that one.
was it Joe? I think it was.
Yeah, I think it was.
It wasn't me, I don't think.
Either one is fine with me, too. I'm flexible.
Yeah.
Well, you mean the 15th or the 16th, or the 15th or?
The 15th or the 22nd, or?
Well, we want to do it before the meeting,
The 22nd's
before, I'm sorry, before the 21st meeting.
Yeah.
So, what do we think? I mean, I thought it was Joe, so maybe,
I mean, we had
You had the
scheduled the
North-
let's
22nd.
schedule for the 15th. If we have to change it, we can.
We'd scheduled the 22nd for a reason. I'm just assuming that we did that deliberately.
Yeah, and I believe it was,
Yeah.
I think we have, I have a question mark next to both the 15th and the 22nd.
yeah, we never confirmed them. We,
Yeah.
22nd shows Norton
It's on my
Media Center.
calendar.
Was it a big agenda item for the 22nd?
I know.
I think everything's going to be a big meeting.
Yeah, there isn't any new,
So we're adding the 15th and keeping the 22nd?
No, we would change it.
it just gives you.
So we'll do the 1st and the 15th instead of the
2nd and the
2nd and
22nd.
Yeah,
22nd.
it just gives you an opportunity to have a second meeting on the warrant, so you're not pressured or have to now add a third meeting that month.
Yeah, the last town meeting, we met, what, the night before town meeting
Yeah,
or
and that
something? And it
went-
was
Yeah,
very
and-
difficult.
And the moderator was not happy with us.
He was very upset.
Yes, he was.
But that was also the noticing issue.
Paul,
But-
in dealing with one of the issues coming up in terms of the tanks, can we get somebody, either like Jen or a peer review, or somebody in here to help us with those? in terms of-
Let's focus, let's get the schedule done first, and then any other,
Okay.
we all tend to do that. just
Okay,
kinda.
so we're gonna aim for the 1st and the 15th and just confirm with Joe,
Okay.
potentially.
Then we
Paul,
Yeah.
do you know how many bills or articles we have to go through? Do we have like 2
Yeah.
or 20? Like,
You have,
I know of at least two.
I put them up on Dropbox. We
Yeah.
have the bylaw changes that Chris and I put together. We have Henry Souza's rezoning of those 15 properties.
But that's in there's 2 different ones up there?
No, that's just one.
Just one? Okay.
Just one. We're treating them as one.
Okay, okay.
And then he submitted the bylaw change to allow residential, duplex and multifamily use by special permit.
That's what I'm trying to
And
think.
then there's the Zone 3
Okay, so 4.
at 4. And then we did have a 5th, which was the rezoning behind Bog Iron, which was, as of this morning, withdrawn.
Oh, okay,
So there's just those 4.
okay.
Now, ours is, our amendment is a lot of definitions that we're adding, and a lot of those definitions were not in the use table, so we needed to add them to the use table, so,
Question, what's the process? Should that, you submitted that to the selectmen. Should that come to us at some point before the selectmen? Is that deemed as coming
They've-
from us, or?
they voted Thursday to transmit it to you.
No, but it's coming from you. Do they deem that it's a recommendation from us? come to you, or should it come to work through us first before it goes to the selectmen? I'm not sure what the
Well, I
process
think we have the ability to submit to the board, warrants. So we were just following that
That
process.
comes like as a staff recommendation.
Right, right. So
And then they
my,
hear those and assign them to the appropriate board for recommendation to town meeting?
well, any
Is that kind of what
change,
you're getting at, or
any
like
change to the,
process is?
Right.
any change to the zoning bylaw and any rezoning has to go through this board.
Right.
So I should point out, too, because of the nature of some of the definitions that we're adding or revising, a lot of these come out of issues we're dealing with the Zoning Board of Appeals. So I want to get a discussion with them. In fact, they're meeting the day after you meet next week. So I'd like to run some of that by them, so that way I can get some feedback to you all on it. Like, we have,
Pretty extensive, though. I was just trying to read through it. I mean,
yeah, but it's because our bylaw lacks so many definitions, and these are all things we've dealt with either here or at the ZBA. So, and we had just said it's time, we need to address these, because like, things like accessory apartments, we keep getting these very large structures that people are saying, are applying for as an accessory structure, and our definition was so vague, so we found a definition that is a lot more prescriptive that could help the ZBA in its determination, so we
can
felt
go-
there
we
was a
can go through
priority
these.
for it.
I would hope that the board would read these all over beforehand. If there are any major questions or anything, get them to Paul. Because, again, time-wise, we're not going to have too much time to send them back for revision. So if there's anything concerning or changes, I would get them to him beforehand, to the extent we're able to.
Well, I think which makes then doing the 1st and the 15th or
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
other day that week.
I mean, ideally, we look them all over, we discuss them on the 1st, and then changes, we review it for the 15th. But that, I mean, again, with the time frame, there's so much on the agendas.
Yeah.
It would be just better for everyone if we could all look them over ahead of time.
So again, you have it, I sent you the link in Dropbox, so you have everything that we have currently.
Okay, so we have October 1st and 15th. What about November?
We scheduled
We
the
said the
12th.
12th.
The
So then-
19th does not work for me.
Yeah, this is where we ran into a problem, I think, last time.
Yeah,
And then the next week is Thanksgiving.
yeah.
November, yeah.
So we would have to do, I mean, we could do the 5th and the 12th.
I'm not available.
No, the 5th is election day.
Yeah.
I think we're better off moving off, not to make it a habit, but because of, if we want to avoid Thanksgiving week, I think we need to, can't do the 5th, and I can't do the 19th, not that I need to be here every single time.
26?
Well, if we can, I mean, is the 19th good for everyone else? I mean, if it's something that you, if we
Not great.
set it up so there's not something that you can't miss,
What about,
you know, as far as-
Yeah.
jumping into the 26th?
that's the week of Thanksgiving,
No.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's either Tim is on dad duty or finds someone to watch the kids, which is always a question.
I understand that.
Try the remote.
What about switching the date to the 20th?
Is that approved yet?
I don't know, we're gonna try it at some point, though.
Is it approved?
Well, the
Yeah, we-
20th of the ZBA meets that night.
So the 18th, should we move it to Monday?
I think we're tougher, we'll just kick him out of there.
I'm okay with that Monday if.
Can we meet at Tim's house?
You get the baby.
Oh, wait,
No.
I'll offer some in.
No, we cannot. If you want me to remote in, I can
No.
try. You just may hear screaming in the background.
So what about Monday,
Done that.
the day before, Monday the 18th?
That's okay for me.
Is
Looking at which,
there anything else going on here?
Yeah, is there something here Monday?
Probably, but we'll get you
Figure it
needed
out.
space.
Yeah, they're upstairs, they're gonna be talking over each other.
Yeah,
All right, let's see what's on Monday. I mean, let's tentatively schedule it for the 18th. If not, we can
yeah.
do the 19th, and we'll make sure that there's nothing on the agenda that
yeah, I mean,
would be detrimental if Tim missed it.
we'll
Yeah,
figure it out.
one thing
We're
we-
still also more than
Yeah, it's still a few months away,
so
yeah.
I can-
Yeah.
All right, what are you thinking about January? No? All right, one other item, now that we're just waiting for the calendars out. So the Charter Commission had asked that we meet with them. I requested that we have a joint meeting because we have to notice for our meetings. They're not going to have a joint meeting with us, but they are going to ask us to come to one of their meetings. November 4th or November 18th are the ones that they have open.
Well, we're meeting on the 18th, so they can come to our meeting.
So that's what's on the 18th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's just do that.
So I can tell them we can meet with them on the 18th.
Yeah, I mean, we could just do that if that simplifies it.
Okay.
Field trip meeting, is that what we're
Yeah.
doing?
That's
So
a
what
joint meeting?
they're gonna want to know is.
That would be a joint meeting? I'm
That
sorry.
that would end up being a joint meeting. So let
We
me,
don't know that yet.
so if we're all gonna meet on the 18th anyways, I'll coordinate with Paul and with Sandra, and we'll, more than likely it will be a joint meeting. I don't know if we'll split off depending on our agenda. But yeah, more than likely, that actually would work out.
Yeah,
You know what time they wanted to meet? What time are they meeting?
They
They
start,
said either 6 AM or 12 PM. I don't know.
Well, if they start at 6 or 6:30, you can always, I can't see spending more than an hour then.
we started at.
Yeah, no, usually they
7.
have 2 or 3 and this is, I have to speak with them directly. Usually they have 2 or 3 groups they meet with each time, so,
Okay. We met
that's
at
why a joint meeting wouldn't work.
It was 7 o'clock last night when we met with them.
So I'll make sure that we're the first on the
Yeah,
agenda.
because
That
I
way
think
we
we
can
have to be the
continue our
first.
meeting afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay, so everyone's okay with that?
and we'll just need to notice our meeting appropriately.
Yeah.
Right.
Was there something else I didn't want to forget? I think, yes.
Just trying to figure out the logistics of it, just from not just the agenda, but where are you know, who gets this room and.
Oh, we get this room.
This one or that one? This and that.
Well,
And FinCom's cranking up too, so they're,
Well, with town meeting, right, and everything.
We'll mark it down with erasable pen.
Yep.
And then that way,
yeah.
it's in ink, but not fully in ink.
Yes, it's good what the Charter Commission is doing, and we have
Yeah.
to go, the building committee has to go as well, we were asked, but I don't know how it's going, because, like, each of us have our own opinions about town government and the structure and going forward, and should the charter be changed or modified or whatever, or left alone.
So
It's
as
not
a,
like a board feedback, it's.
as the board going in there, this is, they're going to ask, as far as our experience on the planning board, directly for the planning board, anything that we have recommendations for.
They
what's
have
good, what's
preloaded
bad.
questions that we could get reviewed.
just
They
an
do.
essence,
Them to
Scott.
Paul.
They have I think it's a four-question questionnaire that's out,
Yeah.
but that's for individuals.
It's
the same survey that
We can talk about it on the 12th.
Yes.
We can-
My plan was to, at the end of one of our meetings, to discuss, things that we would like to improve, to not improve, just strictly as it pertains to the planning board itself. There are other opportunities for individuals, but I think I've submitted one too, so.
I think it would be good to get.
I wish I had the website.
Paul's view on the process,
Should watch the video from last
I'll
night.
individually met with them,
Okay.
so I think as a board, we should discuss, what works, what doesn't work, what,
Yeah.
any suggestions. And we don't necessarily have to all meet with them. We can send a representative or two to the meeting. So there's that option too. That's why I said, mark it down erasable. We don't necessarily have to all go.
They had, last night, the Board of Registrars was here as well. And they, so the video is now showing, so, but a lot of the questions were essentially what's working, what's not, and there were more
Yeah.
specific questions for that board, but it didn't take very long, so, you might get a sense of what they were asking by looking at that video. But you can ask
From-
Sandy, she gave me questions in advance.
From my perspective, what I notice is Paul needs help. So that's something that we as a board, no, mentally, no.
It's like, yeah.
No, just as far, you're running everything and you're doing a very good job. But it's a lot of work, and that's something that I think could be improved, is adding another body to help them.
That was one of the main points I made yesterday to them was, and I realize that's not really what the Charter Commission is looking at, but they ask specific questions about need, and there were positions that we need in the department, but also as a town, like, we don't have an HR rep, human resources rep. We don't have an engineer. Here we are talking about peer review, but life could be a lot easier here if we had engineers working
Well,
on
that would
it.
be a good discussion for the ad hoc budget committee, which
Oh,
hopefully you've been invited to that. The Board of Selectmen School Committee and one other group that meeting, or the Finance Committee.
Yeah.
Like 8 of them. So it's an ad hoc planning, long-term planning for budget, so that's the group you want to be involved.
Yeah, I need to finish, Mike had sent out our wish list form, of what we want, and I need to put that down, but they do ask, they did ask us what we felt, what we needed, and
Yeah, well, a couple of years ago, we endorsed adding an assistant, right? Part-time, this is.
Right.
Kevin, you were, yeah.
Right.
So I think along the lines of that, I mean, I think that's something we should discuss at some point, too. At least endorsing something like that.
Yeah.
But that's probably closer to, budget season, so.
right.
Well, planning boards are the same, they have the same roles and responsibilities in every town, whether it's a town manager, town administrator, councilman, board of selectmen, right? So,
Right.
I mean, there's only so much latitude we can change the planning board. I mean, it's pretty standard,
Yeah.
well-defined.
And you have state, yeah.
Yeah.
Though they made a point yesterday, like, in some cases where the board can hire the staff in some parts of the state.
Or, that's
Which-
the point, or you would report to the board versus you reporting to the town manager.
Right.
That's something that's kind of,
Yeah.
I know school committee is a little different, but the superintendent reports to the school committee, not the town manager.
Right.
It's a little different with your job, but.
Right. Yeah, that came up, that we had a conversation about that yesterday. So my preference is to continue just working directly with the town manager. But obviously, we all work closely here, but
Yeah.
I think there's a perspective that any planning director needs that the town manager can provide, that obviously a planning board won't know what another department is doing. And it's not an insult on it, but that's,
I think it's
Fact.
good. I don't know,
Yeah.
I like you, it really depends on the individual, like, when you start talking about who reports to who and what's better,
right,
then that's usually because the root cause is an issue there, underlying issue with being a point. But we don't have that with you, so it doesn't really matter to me. It's not-
I hope to keep it that way.
And again, we're all elected, I mean, you could have a board come in that's elected that doesn't know much, if anything at all, about rules, regulations, anything, so having him report to the town manager is, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, I think it's good.
But if we have.
So you're saying
bit
that we
mo-
do understand all,
Yeah,
Yes, every single one.
but the more support, it's where one of my biggest priorities is better serving you all. I mean, I feel like I've, stumbled and fallen a few times, or more than a few times.
No way.
But it's important that we have, enough, adequate resources, both in terms of people and like even the fact that, if we had another planner on step, you could go ahead and meet that Wednesday, but, right now, when I'm not there, there's nobody else there. Well, in 2 weeks, that changes, but I think it's about customer service, whether it's providing you all service.
You're servicing the ZBA as well. Has that always been the
Yeah.
case? Their position always service both? I don't think.
My understanding was, I don't know that my predecessors usually sat in with ZBA. They actually had a recording secretary for
Yeah.
ZBA. We don't do staff reports for them unless you get a 40B project, but in the first year, I've gone there to, well, first provide support, but also it helped a lot to understand other aspects of the bylaw that you don't typically see, but sometimes we do. So, but I really would like to have, we have a lot of night meetings, and I'm fine with it, but I would like to have another person sitting in on ZBA instead.
The recording secretary, because even for a 40B project, I went through one and there was a recording secretary.
Yeah.
There's no B,
Well,
And that position-
Ideally, you're working on, more of the larger items and issues,
Right.
rather than, making 500 photocopies to send to abutters. That's,
Yeah, I get help on that even now, fortunately.
Good.
But, we do, the master plan is now launching. There's going to be work on that, and I'm excited about that.
what's the scope of this master plan when you're looking at it? Are they looking at, is it planning for, is it looking at the documents we use service? Is it looking at the overall plan for the town as to what the zoning, what's the scope of, it's not going to be a long meeting. So, I mean,
Oh, for the discovery workshop, it's for the public to come in and provide us with their thoughts about the direction of where they would like to see the town. So actually, the staff from Serpent has been looking at existing plans like the open space plan. They have the 1998 master plan. And from that, they're framing questions to ask people. So we'll break out into small group discussions. And there'll be a facilitator and a recorder at each table. And really just want to hear ideas from people. It's, the future meetings will be more detailed, but when you start a new master plan, you start really at the vision level. I mean, this becomes the vision statement, so, but there's a lot of background research that they do to dig into our documents to understand, the thinking in other areas like open space and historic preservation. But this plan is going to be driven by the values that the public has. And it's not coming from me, it's not going to come from Serpent. Obviously, as the planning board, you're the one that authorizes the plan. And we'll need to talk more about that as we go forward and, whether we take it to town, if you would like it to go to town meeting for approval and all that. But that's going to be, that meeting on Saturday, the 28th, is really critical. And, we'd like to pack the room. And I'd really like to see, not only see the people who we usually see here, but I'd really like to see people that you can go, who is that? We don't know who that is. That's, to hear their opinions on it. So, we've been trying to get the word out both on social media. We have some volunteers handing out these flyers and postcards. In fact, the project manager and I are going to be at the library on Saturday at the flea market to try to drum up interest. And but one of my frustrations is I know, having worked on a number of these plans before, you got to get out there, and I'm not getting out there. And the consultants are trying, but they're not here. They're over in Taunton, and so the more we can get help,
Paul, has there been any invitations to the adjacent communities to see if anyone from those local planning boards would like to just join, to listen?
You know what, no, but I will this week.
Okay. Not that anyone would show, but if they did, it may be very interesting just to understand how there's some strategy that maybe they're doing that we can
In fact,
consider.
tomorrow I'm meeting with the planning director in Easton, so I'll bring her a flyer and see if she'll come, and then I can email the Attleboro and Taunton and Mansfield folks.
Yeah, it'd be great. Or even if they send someone just to listen in, so that when they go through it, they can say, well, Norton's doing this.
oh,
and they talk about it.
include me on that. I'll help you drum up some people from other boards.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you all did receive the email that we sent a couple weeks ago, right, announcing it? Okay. That has everything on it.
Also, you may want to, I don't know how they would support the efforts here for the master plan, but tap into the Dewey College, especially students that are, public policy pages, whatever.
Yep.
They need to.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
have a
So-
Internship or.
In fact, I was put in touch, I can't remember the person's name, but it's with social justice and equity. So we've reached out to her, and she's definitely interested. I asked her if we could get some volunteers. I gave some parameters of things we were looking for students to help out. And what's their qualifications? Well, they're undergraduate, so I don't have, you don't need a master's degree or anything like that, but just have an open mind, be creative, and also be willing to do grunt work, because we do. So I'm hoping we will get some students. The good news, too, is the executive director for Serpent also is an adjunct at Wheaton, so he's trying to get word out, too, and see if we can get some students. And I've asked him, in fact, I asked him if there's, not related to the master plan, but if there are things we can do, like job shadowing or meeting with students to ask, help them answer if there are questions about planning, or go speak to their class about what we do. So Jeff Walker who's the executive director, is taking that into account, consideration. But we are hoping to get Wheaton students. So we just made contact with her last week. Cassandra, don't remember her last name, but we're trying. So
it starts at 9, Paul. Is it go for like an hour, 2 hours?
So it's 9 to 10 is what we call data and donuts. Donuts and data. And that, they're working on some boards that show different demographic information for the town. And so it's an opportunity for people just to look at the boards, look at the maps, and have questions. And then at 10 o'clock, we're going to do a very short presentation, very short, and then we're going to break up into small groups, and people are going to work for an hour and a half. It'll be fun. We did this a lot in Austin, exercises like this, and people really come out of it usually very energized because, they're working, they're sitting around, they're getting their ideas out, and they get to hear other people's ideas, and it can really be pretty exciting to, when I hear people come up with something I hadn't thought about, which is oftentimes, even at meetings, I'm like, wow, that's a great idea, and, just get you pretty energized to do it.
Do you have full pages?
Yeah.
I'll put it in the window of my office.
Did you tell the college students there would be donuts?
Yeah, you should say that.
Yeah, I should have, and this area isn't hip to breakfast tacos yet, but, if you go that route, you'll get students.
So if you
Anything
can't,
food.
If you say donuts, the students will show
Donuts,
it.
right.
Even at
make
9
it-
a.m.
Yeah, if you can't make it to this, Paul, so I might be a good example of this. I've got 2 soccer games that day already with my boys, so let's just use my demographic as an example. How would I get involved in this?
So after the meeting.
With I'll say like-minded individuals like myself that I would try to drum up interest.
Sure, no, great question. We're going to put a survey
But we'll
monkey.
all be at the middle school during this.
So we will
Hold it at the middle school.
Yeah. If you
We're nearby.
at the middle school, I could totally get on that.
Skype.
So we'll be putting out a Survey Monkey survey after
Okay.
the meeting, and it'll chronicle the results from the meeting itself, and we will be asking people to, at least for now, our thought is ask people to put a dot. We'll give people roughly 5 dots, and put a dot on the statement or statements that you support the most.
Okay.
So that'll give us
All
a
right, I
sense
can
of the
give
big
people-
priorities, so we can do that. And I need to talk to Grant and see, could we open it up for people to add items
Yeah.
to it? But what we'll probably do with the Survey Monkey is group-related
Items.
stickers,
Yeah.
stickies together.
Yep, which makes sense.
Yeah.
Which I think is good.
Yeah, I'm all for it. We used to get, in Austin, we would get a lot of feedback through the online. People have different reasons they can't go to meetings or don't want to go to meetings.
Yeah, yeah.
But we want to make these events different. And I know some of you might take this the wrong way, but we want, these meetings to be, very productive, and again, work sessions. So we want people to be tired at the end. We want their,
Yeah, you want their best ideas.
put a good energy
Yeah.
out there, and everyone gets a voice.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And a donut.
All right, speaking of being productive, if there's nothing else, I'm sorry, Peter, what?
I'm looking forward to it.
All right.
Right.
If there isn't anything else, I would love to hear a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll
Second.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.